March 2011, as well as the audited financial statements for the Board of Management of the Grantley Adams Memorial School for the financial years ended 31st of March 2008 to 31st of March 2010, as well as the audited financial statements for the Board of Management of the Ellerslie Secondary School for the financial years ended 31st of March 2009 to 31st of March 2013.
Well, right.
Government notices, private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first reading of bills.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Customs Amendment Bill 2019.
Okay. Question is that this bill be read the first time. All in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notice of motions for adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of standing orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, subsection 5, 43, and 44 be suspended for the remainder of today's sitting.
The question is that those standing orders so mentioned be suspended for the remainder of the day sitting. Those honourable members in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Government business is now the order of the day.
Order number 4, sir, on the supplementing order paper. Name. The Honourable Armstrong, Minister in the Ministry of Finance, to move the second reading of the Customs Amendment Bill 2019.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Good morning, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I rise to move in this parliamentary debate the amendments to the Customs Act, which, sir, in 2019 is quite important given the focus of the government in modernizing and transforming all of the operations within the context of the Barbados government. And so the amendments before the House in this particular bill, sir, is part of the government's efforts to deliver the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program. But within that program, sir, the Customs Department and the reforms and the focus with respect to the rebuilding of that department, sir, is quite critical to the success of the program. Now, there's a bit of history to this particular amendment, sir, which I want to provide some context to the Chamber, because earlier this year, we would have, through the Honourable Member for St. James North, would have piloted a number of amendments as it relates to the Advanced Passenger Information System.
Right.
Well, these amendments before the Chamber today is focused on the Advanced Cargo Information System with respect to the Customs Department. In that instance, sir, that spoke to immigration as well as customs, and this element, sir, focuses mainly on the Customs Department and how the Barbados government intends to modernize and to bring the Customs Department, sir, fully into the 21st century. And these amendments will allow for the implementation of the Advanced Cargo Information System to be able to so do. But, sir, this has a long history in the context of CARICOM, because the Honorable Prime Minister, in her budget statement of this year, would have indicated that when she was Attorney General in the previous Barbados Labour Party administration, that a lot of the prep work was done with respect to putting the mechanism in place for CARICOM to produce what became known as the model bill, which would give effect to these amendments. And so I just wish to, on that basis, sir, speak to the fact that the CARICOM heads of government would have seen the need for this collaborative and strategic approach with respect to the administration of the various customs departments across the systems, and sought then to bring that harmony or harmonization of effort with respect to the various customs departments. And so at the 13th special meeting of the CARICOM heads of government, which was held in April 5th, sir, of 2008, because as you would appreciate, sir, in order to reach that stage, a lot of the work would have been done at that particular point in time by the previous Barbados Labour Party administration, which would have gone into the in a sense, the agreement of the heads of CARICOM in April of 2008 with respect to being able to bring the efforts with respect to this legislation to fruition. But more than just the legislation, sir, it is really about the mechanism through which the sharing of data and information, sir, not just within the region in the context of various customs departments, but certainly, sir, from a security standpoint, that there needed to be an apparatus put in place to make sure that from an intelligence standpoint, and certainly, sir, from the perspective of the movement of goods throughout the region, and of recent, sir, you would be aware that there have been issues relating to human trafficking in the region as well, sir. And so therefore, it meant that you needed to have an appropriate mechanism in place to be able to share information about vessels moving throughout, sir, the CARICOM or Caribbean region. And therefore, from a security standpoint, it is critical, sir, that the manifest or the information about which a ship or vessel, aircraft, what have you, sir, is carrying, that information is shared well in advance before it actually reaches the dock, in this case, with respect to cargo, or in the case of the airport, that you have that information in advance, so that customs officers can prepare in advance, knowing that this is what is reportedly on a particular vessel, and that the process then, sir, with respect to screening or risk management, can be adopted to suit, sir, what the various contents of the vessels may be. Because as you would appreciate, sir, in a very dynamic world, as things moving around the systems, we need to make sure that we have the systems in place to be able to deal with any specific set of cargo and have the conditions right, sir, not just for the protection of the officers performing the examinations, but certainly, sir, with respect to any other personnel that may potentially be exposed, so that you can have the appropriate mechanism in place. And so, sir, this mandate reflected the need for the strategic change, in a sense, in the governance structure of the member states to establish a more integrated, effective and efficient environment that will facilitate international trade, sir, while strengthening the security of the borders of participating member states in a coordinated manner. Because with the best will in the world, sir, with the nature of how goods are manufactured these days and transshipped, sir, and all of that, we all know that there are issues relating to rules of origin with respect to the WTO and the various mechanisms for trade facilitation. And so therefore, sir, the sharing of information with respect to not just what's coming into Barbados, but certainly in the context of, given that we have made agreements with respect to CARICOM goods versus extra-regional goods, sir, and the level of access with respect to these things, then it meant, sir, that once you have a platform where data can be shared, that there could be the potential for misinterpretation or lack of clarity will be diminished because of having the facility to share in advance, sir, various critical pieces of information. But what it also does, sir, is would create a much more integrated focus with respect to the sharing of knowledge and resources across the various customs departments across the region. But, sir, the Advanced Cargo Information System really is a computer-based information system. It has been developed by the United Nations Conference for Trade and Development, sir, which is UNCTAD, to track transport, equipment, and cargo. And so, therefore, sir, the ACIS will enable customs departments to basically to examine in advance, as I said, documents presented for import and export, and determine whether any item, including small arms and light weapons, require special attention. And so, sir, in the 21st century, as we seek to modernize government, of which certainly the Customs Department is a critical piece of the infrastructure with respect to, first and foremost, sir, the maintenance of the national security objectives of the country, and then second to that, sir, the revenue performance in terms of trade and business facilitation, that the introduction of the advanced customs, advanced cargo information system will allow for that, for us really, sir, to really give the officers within the department and the department the ability then to be able to function more fully in what, as I said, sir, truly the 21st century. Now, the timing of this, sir, is actually quite, in a sense, fortuitous, perhaps coincidental, because, as I said to you, sir, this was agreed by the heads of government, the CARICOM heads of government in 2008, April. So that would tell you, sir, that between then and now, 2008, April, let me be April 5th, sir, to be precise. Yeah? April 5th, 2008. This was agreed at CARICOM heads of government. So just for clarity, April 5th, 2008, sir. And the reality, sir, is, sir, that we know that certainly in the last 10 years, and certainly with all the complaints about what has happened with the Customs Department and the level of service, sir, and all of the issues with the movement to BRA or the non-movement to BRA, however you choose to put it, sir, the very basics with respect to the tools that officers would have required to be able to help advance their work obviously was not in place. And certainly, sir, there has been, certainly from no less a person than the Commissioner of Police, an admission that the guns that we are talking about, sir, in the country right now were coming through ports of entry. And therefore, sir, this speaks to the fact that whilst we have come to this, to government, sir, to rescue Barbados, a lot of the very basic things, sir, that are required on a daily basis for officers, not just within the Customs Department, but certainly across government, sir, to be able to better safeguard the interests of Barbadians, we now have to put in place. And the Honourable Member for St. Michael South can speak to from a port perspective, what is being done with respect to the enhancement of security from that perspective. Within the Customs Department, sir, we too are also enhancing the security within those areas that are deemed to be customs control areas. For example, there are many off-site warehouses, sir, across the country where the border extends, because for a number of us, sir, we may have seen when we speak about border security, one tends to think of the Bridgetown Port or the airport or Port St. Charles or Port Ferdinand, where there may be specific outposts. But as the government over the years has sought to enhance the business facilitation element, there are a number of off-site warehouses where goods are processed and cleared. And therefore, the border extends to any area, sir, whether it is your premise that items may be unstuffed or a particular warehouse, that you need to have the same security measures in place so that the standard operating procedures with respect to what happens can be no different to what happens at the Bridgeton Port or the airport or Port Ferdinand or Port St. Charles or any private warehouse, but wherever goods, sir, are processed and cleared, the standard operating procedure must be the same. Because the critical element here, sir, is to make sure that not just you have the sharing of information, but the same procedures are employed wherever customs officers are deployed to be able to conduct examinations. But, sir, that is the reason that is critical is because obviously the information that you are fed beforehand allows you to determine whether or not to determine, sir, the risk protocol that you need to engage with respect to various entities. And to the extent, sir, that the analysis of said information with respect to risk and in a real sense, sir, to make sure then that there's an ability to assess on an ongoing basis who potentially may be offenders with respect to the conduct of trade, that the department then is in a position, sir, to be able to, on a risk management basis, determine whether or not persons can continue with respect to being facilitated with business, and therefore it's something that is quite serious with respect to the national security objectives of the country. And so at this particular time, sir, as we have come to government and we've sought to stabilize the economy over the last year, and as I mentioned, sir, a number of the structural benchmarks for this financial year really relates to the reforms within the Customs Department. And so having this particular piece of infrastructure, if you like, agreed since 2008, and we are now coming to office, sir, to really start to ramp up and the reform efforts and the rebuilding efforts, sir, within the Customs Department. These are but some of the things that are necessary, sir, necessary to bring Barbados into the 21st century. And as we speak, the consultants from UNCTAD, sir, on a slightly different track, are now on the ground, sir, to have the implementation of Asecuda World, which, as you would recall, sir, the Prime Minister would have indicated in the budget speech in this chamber, that we were the first country in the region to introduce Asecuda ++, the first country in the region to implement Asecuda ++. But now we are the last, sir, the last, let me put it this way, we are the only country now in the region still using Asecuda ++. And so the UNCTAD consultants now, sir, are on the ground with a view to the implementation of or the upgrade, sir, for Asecuda World by September 1st. Now, part of why all of this is coincidental, sir, is because whilst this was agreed by the heads of government in April of 2008, as you could imagine, sir, a number of CARICOM regions have already gone forward and implemented the Advanced Cargo Information System. So, in a real sense, sir, Barbados and the administration and the support, sir, that was required to help officers do their jobs in this country, we have been left behind, and therefore we are seeking to put these amendments before the House today with a view of making sure that we are in a position to, sir, as the UNCTAD consultants are here on the ground to implement Asecuda World, and they'll be here for the next 6 months to make sure that everything moves smoothly, that we at the same time, sir, on a slightly different, on a parallel track, also augment that effort with respect to business and trade facilitation with also implementing the Advanced Cargo Information System. Because the department, sir, needs the support, and I say to the public, sir, in that vein, that over the coming weeks, certainly the Customs Department is going to be reaching out to the various stakeholders with respect to what the implementation dates would mean, because the truth is, sir, right now, if something happened to Asecuda++, there's no support. And as you know, sir, with software, there's a length of time that the vendors provide support, because once they upgrade to a different system, they give you a period of time, sir, to transition, as we all know, before they stop the support to that system. And the truth is, sir, is that right now, if something was to happen to Asecuda++, there is no support available from UNCTAD because they've stopped supporting it because they've upgraded and everybody has gone ahead. For the most part, sir, everybody in the region has gone ahead, upgraded to Asecuda World, and Barbados is the only country still using Asecuda++. And so, sir, I've had a number of meetings with various sections in the Customs Department to impress upon them that the technology, sir, is not to replace anybody. It is a tool, sir. It is a tool that must be used wisely now within the 21st century to do a better job with respect to the national security objectives of the country, and then on the second point, sir, to enhance the revenue collection of the Customs Department. And therefore, the experience, sir, of those officers which have built up over the years will be supported, sir, now with tools that actually helps them to be able to do a much better job than what might have been entertained in the past. And so that the public, sir, I'm through you, sir, will ask the public to bear with the Customs Department, because with the best will in the world, sir, over the last 5-6 years, the department has lost about 200 officers approximately. And we do not have 200 customs officers available to just deploy overnight. And therefore, part of the process with respect to rebuilding the department will involve training. Part of the process, sir, will involve the introduction of technology. And, sir, and so the message to the various stakeholders, and the message certainly in the context as I've had with the officers of the department, is that yes, we have recognized that you need staff, and we are putting the various mechanisms in place which have already started to bring staff. But as you know, sir, it takes time to train people before you can deploy them. And therefore, we are in a situation now, sir, where we are trying to, as effectively as possible, redeploy and redesign the processes with respect to the Customs Department and what they're doing, supported, sir, with the technology, because it is the use of the technology and the approach and the uses of risk management approaches is what is going to allow us now to truly leverage the experience of those officers within the department, such that the strain with respect to how work is managed and processed will be done over the next few months. And so there are several things that are going to be happening within the context of the Customs Department over the next few weeks and months, of which the Advanced Cargo Information System, sir, the implementation of the Advanced Cargo Information System is a critical part. And so as the UNCTAD consultants are here to implement the upgrade to Asecuda World, the timeliness of this introduction now of the Advanced Cargo Information System alongside that, sir, will go a long way with respect to being able to better serve the department's ability to better serve the national security objectives of the country, as well as better facilitation with respect to business and trade. Now, all of this, sir, is being done in the context where, at the moment, and part of the reason, sir, that we are pushing to do this by September 1st is essentially, sir, to make sure that we do so in advance of the so-called busy season. Because having no support, certainly for Asecuda++, at this particular point, sir, I must say, training has taken place on a couple of occasions with respect to its introduction. Some of that will resume, sir, on the part of the not just the customs officer, but the various stakeholders who utilize the Asecuda system. But simultaneously, sir, we have to make sure that we do this in advance of the the busy season, which is the back end of the year, simply because we want to be in a position, essentially, sir, to switch off Asicuda++ and turn on, in a sense, Asicuda World. Now, in that vein, sir, and this is why it is important from a public standpoint that the various stakeholders recognize that with the change from one system to the next, that there's bound to be either miscommunication or some misinterpretation with respect to the way that things potentially are done. But given, sir, that certainly brokers, importers, and all those persons have already engaged the testing environment with respect to this, then it is incumbent upon us to work with each other, sir, to make sure that when we do that switch over, that it is as smooth as possible. And therefore, it means that we have to engage with each other, the Customs Department as well as the public, sir, to make sure that we have as smooth a transition as possible. Now, the truth is, sir, and it is kind of heartbreaking, because when I think about where Asicuda++ is on a DOS system, sir. And it's on a DOS system. And as you know, sir, I mean, not that there was anything wrong with DOS, but, sir, the world has moved on. And therefore, the introduction of Asicuda World allows then us to be able to leverage all of the various platforms to access and engage data, because as we know, as a government seeks to modernize and build up our systems, right now we are limited by the access, in a sense, in terms of what Asicuda++ could do. And the reason that people would have moved, in a sense, to Asicuda World is because, sir, it is accessible from a cloud-based perspective. Okay. And therefore, access is not limited to the specific terminal that the application is actually installed. And therefore, the ease with which, for example, at the moment, if a customs officer has to go to, for example, Arawat or any off-site facility, for example, sir, in some instances, sir, officers have to leave where they are going to deal with a particular instance and come back down to customs house to be able to effect the transaction. And, well, not necessarily go back, but you have to, if there's anything wrong, they've got to go back to deal with it. And so therefore, sir, what we are essentially trying to do is to make sure that with the introduction of Asicuda World, and certainly with the support of the advanced cargo information system, because the key is, sir, is that you should know in advance what is in the container, because you have the information about what was on what the ship had on it first, in terms of the manifest, and have sight of the information beforehand, so that all the various pieces of documentation can be assessed in advance, so that when you go to a particular site, you can deploy the officers accordingly on a risk management basis. And I must say to you, sir, that throughout this process of the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan, certainly this year, a lot, as I said earlier, a lot of attention really is on the Customs Department and a lot of reform efforts, which includes the introduction of a trusted trader program. But all of this, sir, is predicated on the use of technology, the provision of information in advance to allow the officers to be able to do the jobs from a slightly different perspective. And so to the extent that there may be a need for intense examination of containers, cargo, what have you, with the introduction of the scanning capability, certainly at the Bridgetown port, as well as with respect to the scanning at the various warehouses that where goods are cleared, including the courier sheds, the post office, and similar areas, that once those protocols are in place, you have the advanced information up front, and therefore it is the use of all of that data and information, sir, that will make, in a sense, determine whether or not there needs to be a very detailed examination with respect to any particular container or the items. And so therefore, the standard operating procedures, sir, that will now be employed because of the introduction of the scanners to support, which will be supported by the information and the data that will be presented in advance, will then allow customs officers and the customs department to be able to, on a risk management basis, focus then on what are those areas that they need to be able to deploy, rather than on a routine basis where, because of a lack of information, that you have examinations, but those examinations could have been, and I use this term very, very sparingly, avoided, because one still has to, on a continual basis, make sure that the risk protocols that you have in place, that you have to test them. And so therefore you still have to have a randomness with respect to examinations. But it must be done, sir, in a context where you're supported by data, supported by information, where, as we will say, sir, we will trust, but we must verify. And that is the basis on which we now have to make sure that as we introduce these new technologies, that the engagement certainly with the private sector, the engagement with the customs brokers, the engagement with the public, sir, with respect to what is happening with respect to the customs department, that the department, first and foremost, sir, has the responsibility of making sure that the national security objectives, above all else, sir, that those are met, and the various reforms and introduction of technology is, in a sense, sir, to facilitate business and to do trade in a much more seamless fashion. And so, sir, the advanced cargo information system, sir, has the added advantage of providing transport operators and ancillaries with reliable, useful statistics and immediate data on transport operations, thereby enabling transport operators to improve day-to-day management and decision-making. Now, sir, this is absolutely critical, because logistics and transportation, sir, and I know we've had some debate in this chamber about transport recently, but the logistical side of this, sir, is absolutely critical, because, as you know, the transportation of goods, transportation of people in an economy is absolutely critical for growth to take place. And so, to the extent, sir, that as part of the reforms that certainly I know is ongoing with respect to the Bridgetown Port, as well as the Customs Department, there's been long-standing complaints, sir, about the length of time that it takes to clear items, the costs with respect to demurrage, and all of those issues with respect to the consequential costs that add up, sir, which then ultimately, sir, is passed on to the consumer. So the reality is that, sir, is that the introduction and the use of this to help improve the processing times is very critical to also the logistical side of things, sir, with respect to being able to make sure that, one, the operations of not just the port or ports, because I don't want us to just single out the Bridgetown Port. I mean, that's where perhaps a lot of the focus with respect to costs may come from. But the reality, sir, is that any port, the use of this information, or the effective use of this information, sir, will allow for a better management with respect to the flow of work, such that the logistics behind transportation of whether containers or cargo to and from can happen in as seamless a manner as possible. And that is why, sir, as I said, these things are necessary to be able to bring Barbados into the 21st century. But the sufficient condition, sir, is to engage the various stakeholders as to why it's important, such that whilst it is necessary, in order for it to become truly effective, we have to engage all of the stakeholders within this process, that the need to change, sir, the way that things are done, not just within the context of the Customs Department, but within the entire logistics process with respect to the movement of cargo in and out of Barbados. And so therefore, it is on that basis, sir, that we will move forward to try to impress upon persons that the change in the nature of how things are managed and done ultimately, sir, will redound to the benefit with respect to the cost of living in the country. Because the times that items are moved are critical, because if you can imagine, sir, notwithstanding the fact that the intent of this government, sir, is to literally transition to a 24-hour economy. But the reality is, sir, is that the times that goods are moved in the country affects the cost. And therefore, it means that when we clear items, when officers are deployed, when the port is engaged, all of these things, sir, add up to the cost of doing business in Barbados. And therefore, we will dissect each element, sir. And as we have done at from the very start of this process, we have engaged persons to say that the government is intended to make sure that this process is as inclusive as possible. And therefore, the focus now is to reposition Barbados, sir. We've spoken for a number of years with respect to Barbados being a transshipment point, but we haven't put the mechanisms in place, sir, and done the necessary changes where it matters to be able to bring effect to that. And the reality is, sir, that once we're able to do these changes, introduce these pieces of technology, and you actually use them, sir, to its capacity, then it means that the more business can be done within the context of the jurisdiction. And therefore, it means, sir, that the economy then starts to grow a little faster, simply because we've been able to drive home more efficiencies to the process. And so the logistics, sir, the logistics as it relates to transportation is a very important side effect, if you like, with respect to the effective implementation of this. But that means, sir, that the stakeholders must be engaged as to what that means. So rather than having goods stuck in traffic on the highway when the evening comes, yeah, or when the day comes, sir, it means that as we relook the entire process in terms of when items are cleared, traffic management, how goods are deployed and moved, it's a very important part of the reform. But that's not a customs function. But it is the customs can facilitate it by making sure then that the effective implementation of not just the advanced cargo information system, but the full, sir, reform process that we are looking to engage means now that whilst we are working to improve on our end, it means that other persons too must be involved in the process and be committed to making those changes with respect to being able to get things done. Now, sir, the truth is that an important component of this ASIS concept is its inherent ability to enhance the process of regional integration. And it provides the Customs Department with the capability to track, monitor, and profile, sir, cargo in or through the region to ensure that both timely and appropriate action is taken by customs and law enforcement officials. Now, as I said, sir, this is work that was started by a previous Barbados Labour Party administration. It was agreed by the heads in April 2008, sir. And the reality is, sir, is that, you know, Barbados has always been in the forefront with respect to regional integration. And, sir, and long may remain so, because the better that we work together, sir, as neighbors, means that we can, in a sense, sir, reduce some of those administrative burdens and costs with respect to doing business with each other, sir. And therefore, one of the things that we have always sought to do, sir, is where young enterprise may be wishing to export, whether regionally or internationally, sir, the reality is that once we are in a position, sir, to be able to track using this information, it means that we can provide prospective young business people or established business people, sir, with relevant information that helps them to plan their business affairs. Because if we know that there's a specific issue in an area, then the monitoring mechanism then allows for us then to be able to help navigate any specific trading issues. And as you know, sir, things are happening at a very rapid rate today, and the extent to which the government can share and update the various stakeholders is critical, because the truth is, sir, when, as the old adage says, sir, time is money, and the reality is that once persons can make decisions in a shorter time frame as possible, then it means then that they can deploy resources, sir, accordingly. And so whilst this is on the part of the government to be able to one, put the legislation in place and to do the various upgrades with respect to the IT support, it means, sir, that our business community and the various stakeholders equally, sir, must be engaged to also do similar upgrades to be able to access the information. And as part of our reform process, sir, that we have engaged, for example, I suppose, sir, for the benefit of the chamber, you would have heard the Prime Minister indicate in her address in the budget that the Customs Department has not had an appointed controller since 2005, I believe it was. And we have, yes, who happened to have my name? But we have, sir, as part of the rebuilding of the Customs Department, in the last few weeks, sir, we have advertised for the post of controller, as well as deputy controllers as well. They're meant to be 3. And this, sir, this demonstrates the seriousness that this government sees the rebuilding of the Customs Department as a critical department for the success of the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan. And once those persons are recruited, sir, we have also engaged a long-term customs expert to help support that management team. We have also, in recent weeks, sir, we have established a customs officer 4 position, because there were a number of officers within the Customs Department who were designated as clerical officers, who were essentially performing customs functions. But because of the name of the position, sir, you would have had some issues with persons being transferred, which obviously impacted the department. So we have since corrected that, and we're in the process, sir, of making sure that those persons who perform customs functions are so designated as part of the rebuilding effort with respect to the department. But with that, sir, that is not enough, because as I've outlined here, sir, for the Customs Department to be truly effective in the 21st century, and I'll speak to another matter shortly, it means that those persons charged with the responsibility of performing customs duties, it means that their skills must also be enhanced. Because if we are asking persons, sir, to engage the technology and using a lot of this data, then it means that the skill set, sir, of customs officers for the future must change. And therefore, sir, we are seeking to try to attract to the Customs Department persons who have an IT background and persons who have an accounting background, who can be trained to become customs officers, because those skills, sir, are critical for allowing Barbados to be truly effective in using all of this data. because it is the mining of the data, sir, the interrogation of the data that is critical. Now, sir, those are not the only two important skill sets, but I'm saying that the skill sets, along with the existing experience of the customs officers, that they need to bolster within the actual department itself for those customs officers to have those skill sets that will learn from the experienced officers, sir, but moving forward, that with the use of technology, that we have officers who can engage various business enterprises because they have the skill sets to be able to look at the books of the various agencies and make a determination as to whether or not things, in a sense, add up. And those are two very critical skill sets that we want to attract to the customs department, not to be in the IT section or to be in the account section, you know, sir, to actually be performing customs functions. Because in this day and age, sir, with the various skills with respect required for trade facilitation, sir, and I must say to you, sir, that trade is perhaps the most data-intensive area that one could ever want to be involved in. And it means, sir, that the department now must develop a specialism, if you like, sir, within the context of customs officers with respect to the effective management of the department, so that those skill sets now become very important to build up within the department. So on the one hand, sir, there will be some training to be able to help those officers who have that capability to become much more proficient. But by the same token, sir, the intention is to kind of accelerate it, where if persons already have such skill sets, they can train to become customs officers and therefore be in a position then to truly, sir, take advantage of, as I said, these are the necessary things that we have to put in place to allow the customs department to function. But then the sufficient part, sir, is to have the human resource capability to actually utilize these systems. And so this is really part of the rebuilding, in a sense, sir, is almost be starting from scratch, in a sense, because it's an opportunity now, sir, to mix good customs experience with some good technical skills, and hopefully, sir, that it is that immersion of skill sets that we believe will be the customs department will be better able to respond to a whole host of demands on the customs department, which has developed over the years, and it's something, sir, that we want to be able to promote so that the department can respond as effectively as possible to the needs of the public. Now, sir, having said that, I want to say that during the last administration, with the proposed move to the BRA, something interesting happened. The IT section of customs was moved to the Barbados Revenue Authority. So the section that deals with Asecuda ++ and actual customs work was moved to the Barbados Revenue Authority. Now, some clear act of wisdom, having moved it and then left the rest of the persons behind, for the last few years now, you've had this back and forth between the Customs Department and the Revenue Authority with respect to the administration of customs work. Now, sir, what that has done is, in a sense, it has impacted the ability of the department to function. Now, as you can imagine, sir, if you are accustomed, if we have a protocol in place where we can make the necessary adjustments on the spot, in a sense, in a real sense, or in a, let me put it this way, in a timely manner, And then all of a sudden, sir, I now have to come and ask you and wait for you to assign somebody for them to get back to you, to get back to me, so that I can inform my officers as to how to respond. Then what that has done, sir, is that has created an administrative, but also a real practical delay and cost to doing business in the country. And so as part of this upgrade to Asikuda World, sir, we are in the process of populating or re-establishing the IT section within the Customs Department, simply because, sir, it is customs work. And therefore, the Customs must have the appropriate tools to do the job that we ask of Customs. Because right now, sir, if you go to the Bridgetown port or anywhere now, and there's something peculiar that may need an intervention, then what invariably has to happen is that the officer there has to, and this is how it works. You inform the controller then speaks to, well, not speaks, you have to write, but you know, in the way that government works, you have to write the controller, then the controller writes the revenue authority, the revenue commissioner then designates somebody at the revenue authority to be able to then respond to make sure that the customs officer who's at the border right now, sir, trying to clear those items, that those items are cleared. Now the truth is, sir, that could never make sense under any circumstance. And so it's a situation that we came on phone, but our way of dealing with it is to make sure that when the Asikuda World goes live, that the Customs Department has, again, an IT section capable of doing that work, so that from a real practical standpoint, sir, it means that any issue that comes up can be resolved by Customs, as I said, in as timely a manner as possible, simply because the truth is, sir, if the officer at the BRA happens to be working on something else and has a myriad of things that they're working on, then it's just something that they're adding to their plate, because it's really not their focus. But that was something that was set up by the previous administration, but we intend to deal with it in this way as we upgrade to Asikuda World. And so therefore, as it's something that in conversations with not just the customs officers, but even with the members of the private sector, they've expressly said that this thing does not make sense. And the truth is, sir, I don't know how anybody could have conceived that this thing could make sense previously, but we are going to correct it as part of this upgrade process. Now, sir, in addition to what I just mentioned earlier about the capability to track and monitor, the introduction of the ASIS will also give the opportunity to enhance cargo supply chain security through pre-arrival screening protocols, as well as procedures to assess the level of risk and thus target shipments before their arrival or departure that may pose threats to security. Now, sir, one would think that in 2019 that this would be something routine, because as I said, sir, this is the prep work that we would have done leading up to its agreement in 2008 at the heads of government. But as you well know, sir, a lot of things were left languishing.
10 years.
And so a lot of what we are trying to do now, sir, is in a sense to play catch up, but we can catch up. Because we are committed, sir, to doing the work that is in the interest of Barbados and Barbadians. And we are going to do the things, sir, that would allow officers across government to do the best job that they can do in these circumstances, and support, sir, the rebuilding, not just of the Customs Department, but the rebuilding of processes and procedures right across government to make sure that we are focusing, sir, on having a good delivery of public services to the Customs Act, Cap 66, sir, are critical. These amendments are critical for us to be able to implement the Advanced Cargo Information System. As I mentioned earlier, sir, the UNCTAD consultants are on the ground with respect to the upgrade for Asikuda World. The implementation by the Joint Regional Communication Center, JRCC, sir, who, with the introduction of the Advanced Passenger Information System early this year, sir, will work alongside to make sure then that these systems are integrated with the UNCTAD consultants on the ground, and so that we have persons working as efficiently as possible, because there's nothing worse, sir, than asking the same persons to be focusing on 2 or 3 different things, hearing kind of different messages. So the reality is now we're trying to coordinate, sir, the implementation of these systems so that the integration is as smooth as possible, such that the public over the coming months, sir, and certainly with the switchover from Asikuda ++ to Asikuda World, will have an immediate impact, because obviously it's a change of system, and therefore it means that once the standard operating procedures are agreed, then it will, of course, mean that things will be done differently. And I am happy to say, sir, that it is certainly our focus, and I've done a tour of the airport, I've done a tour of the seaport and a number of other areas, and I've impressed upon the officers that part of the upgrade, sir, is to get rid of the paper. And it's not just to get rid of the paper, but because the paper is kept, sir, in the environment that the officers are working in, it really does not lend, as you know, paper collects dust, sir. And once you have these large amounts of paper around the place, then invariably it will have some impact on persons' respiratory systems. And it is something that, as part of the transition, that we have to, in a sense, sir, sensitize persons that part of the way forward, not just from an efficiency standpoint, but certainly from a health and safety perspective, and that the concern, obviously, given when you look at the complaints with respect to for respiratory matters across the board, sir, it means that these paper files and the way that we are doing things, sir, is in effect contributing to ill health. And to that extent, sir, the introduction of this technology, we want from inception to make sure that, one, not just the officers themselves, but the various private sector stakeholders come to the appreciation that we have to employ the full use of the system so as to allow for greater efficiencies to come from the Customs Department, but certainly, sir, that the paper that is kept in the offices, not just in Customs, but certainly across the board in terms of government, that is completely eliminated with respect to the management of this, such that persons will clear items digitally, electronically. They will submit all of their documentation. All of the necessary legislation is in place with respect to the acceptance of digital signatures as authorized signatures, the provision of information digitally. It is there, and it is now incumbent upon us now to see that change management through, to change the culture of the piece of paper. Now, it doesn't mean that people can't print stuff, but you can't, the idea here, sir, is not to engage the system then to print everything off. That doesn't make sense. It means that we have to, throughout the very immediately after implementation, part of our monitoring in a sense of the implementation of the system is to make sure that persons don't fall back into those habits that they're comfortable with, and that we see the change through both from the government side but also from the side of the private sector. And this is a critical thing because we don't want to spend all this money and have all this capability and we still doing the same habits, which one, increases the processing times, right? And if you're increasing processing times, then it means that you're increasing costs with respect to what's happening with the logistics, as I mentioned earlier, the movement of goods in and out of the various ports or warehouses, what have you. And so it is critical that one of the tangible things that we set in train from the beginning, and we monitor it to make sure in post-implementation that the habits that people are comfortable with, that they don't fall back to. It's something that we have to be very mindful of. And so the amendments here, some of them speak to the fact that there's a requirement for, in advance, for the master of ships or the captains of ships to be able to provide the various pieces of information to the controller in advance. And the definitions, as you can see here, Clause 2 speaks to what the advanced cargo information means, and it says it means a manifest or an area bill, a bill of lading information or data as settled in the first schedule in respect of cargo and stores, including all imports, exports, in transit and transshipment of goods, or B, any package of which there is no bill of lading or area bill on board an aircraft or ship. It speaks to the definition of break bulk, bulk cargo, cargo manifestor, cargo reporter, carrier, consolidator, freight forwarder, long haul flight, short haul flight. And all of this, sir, speaks to the various, in a sense, the various ways that cargo is received in Barbados. As you well know, sir, that in today's day and age, especially, sir, with capability where there's less than container load, the information from a consolidator is critical because each of us in this room, sir, may not have enough to fill a container, but we may take our items to a specific freight forwarder. They will consolidate the information, so therefore come as one shipment, and therefore the ability to know who is shipping what, where, with the value, all of that information is absolutely critical, sir, to the process. Clause 3, sir, speaks to the duty of the master or ship or commander of an aircraft in terms of what is required of them with respect to the cargo. And all of this, sir, is in this, as you could appreciate, sir, outside of aircraft, obviously, which will arrive much faster in terms of in the jurisdiction than ships, then it means that the exchange of information, the timing of that is absolutely critical with respect to being able to be allowed access, in a sense, into the space. And so the clause 34, clause 3, 34.5, it says the master of the ship, commander of an aircraft, the agent of or master of, the master of a ship, commander of an aircraft, the agent of the master or commander respectively, and every cargo reporter shall at such time as is stated in subsection 6 provide the chief operation officer of the JRCC with the data set out in the first schedule in an electronic form or in a form that is approved by the chief operations officer. And so, sir, the schedules speak to a breakdown of the specific information that is required to be provided. And the truth is, sir, when we made the amendments earlier this year with respect to the advanced passenger information system, there is much similarity between, in terms of the structure of the databases, between the APIS and the ASIS in this sense, except that obviously in that one you speak to people, in this one, and now speaks to cargo. And therefore, sir, it means that in a real sense, not just from a cargo perspective, but with the use of the APIS data, use of the ACES data, support with Asekuda World, the Trusted Trader Program, and all the other technologies in place, it means, sir, that the Customs Department and the government will have the capability now of mining all of this data for a whole, to make sure that, one, our national security objectives are met. Two, that the business and trade facilitation objectives are equally met, because as I mentioned earlier, the effective implementation of these pieces of technologies, if you like, the integration within our systems with respect to the standard operating procedures at the various ports of entry with respect to whether passengers or cargo, sir, will make a substantive difference with respect to what is, not just from a revenue standpoint, but from a processing standpoint at the various ports of entry. And I will take this opportunity, sir, in the case, just to indicate that we have the government, as we have said before in this chamber, the government has introduced the kiosks at the airport, sir, as part of an effort to modernize the processing of persons through immigration and customs in that instance. And so therefore, as we travel the world, sir, we go to various jurisdictions and we put in our information, we scan our passports, we check in, we do all kinds of things digitally, sir. And the reality is that Barbados now has to make sure that we are not left behind by technology, because when people expect, in a sense, a certain procedure, because if you travel all around the region of the world and you're seeing these things happen, and then when you come to Barbados, you realize, but what's really going on here? Then people start to question the value proposition for Barbados. And so, as we've done with the advanced passenger information systems, and that is in the process of being worked out, and certainly as the airport expands in a real sense, sir, the introduction of those kiosks supported by the advanced passenger information system is in a real sense, sir, to allow, once the airport expands, for more traffic to come through the airport, sir. It means then that the processing of that traffic becomes easier and we're able to manage it. And therefore, all of these things, sir, are designed to make sure that from a processing standpoint, that we are able to respond to the needs of persons. And so these amendments today, sir, are just, as I said, to bring something that was agreed in 2008, really, sir, given that a number of countries in the region have already gone ahead with the implementation, we are seeking to make sure that, one, we catch up, and when we catch up, sir, once Barbados catches up, we will take the lead. But the point is, sir, we are playing a little bit of catch up here, but this is being done in the context, sir, of the rebuilding of the Customs Department as part of the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program. And as I said earlier, with these changes, sir, in terms of the introduction of technologies, the public can expect greater communications coming through the various stakeholder arrangements coming from the Customs Department with respect to the impact of these things. We will try as much as possible, sir. I know it's crop over and people didn't want to hear about customs and all these things, sir. People partying, but whilst you're partying, just be aware that your government is working to make things a little easier. And the reason we are pushing to have this done by September is because we don't want to have implementation in the midst of all of the imports coming at the back end of November and December. So therefore, we need to give ourselves some time to implement, sir, and engage persons to make sure that anything that pops up that we can deal with And I ask the public's patience, because something that really should have been done at least 5-6 years ago, with respect to, this is with respect to our school world. As I said, this ACES legislation that we're debating was agreed by the heads of government on April 5th, 2008. So it is more than 10 years that we've had this lying around. And the reality is, sir, that we have to get our act together. And in getting our act together, sir, we are simply putting the systems, the infrastructure, as well as some change management in critical areas, sir, to make sure that not just the rebuilding of the department, but the way that government engages and does business, not just internally, but certainly with respect to the public, sir, that over the course of the next few months, I hope that Barbadians will be able to feel much more comfortable about how they engage with the Customs Department, how they engage with the wider stakeholders within the process of whether it's the British port or the airport, sir, that we fix those issues that needed to be fixed. And whilst we can't do everything all at once, sir, we are seeking to make sure that we just have an approach to this reform effort that is measured, is consistent. But I must say, sir, that Barbados, in order to get out of this hole that we are in, sir, we have to push hard to make sure that we get these early wins, create some momentum, and this is part of creating that momentum, sir. Because I want to be out of this hole as quickly as we can, and this is critical with respect to the changing of the arc or the trajectory for the Customs Department, because over the last few years, sir, much of the officers feel as if they are their stepchildren, or outside children, as we would say, sir. And the reality is, sir, that it's not a good feeling, because a lot of the critical things that needed to be done, that would have been done internally, in a sense, were taken away, so they felt hopeless. And as part of our rebuilding effort, sir, I want to give the assurance and thank, sir, the officers for their work up until now. There's still a lot more to be done, because as we implement not just the Asicuda world, but this ACES platform, as well as the trusted trader. And I want just also to speak to the fact, sir, that the wider discussion with respect to the electronic single window, sir, where all the government agencies will be, in a sense, sitting on the platform. The Asicuda world is the foundation element. And there's been a lot touted in the past, and the truth is, sir, that without reflecting too much on what those guys would have done, the reality is, sir, that there's a lot to be desired, sir, because when you think about the fact that there were announcements and pronouncements and this and that, sir, but then when you really probe, there was nothing but, truth is, sir, money was spent. Money was spent. But there was nothing that you can go and touch, feel, sir. But, sir, over the next few weeks and months, the work will continue. And it is our contention, sir, that once we continue to do the work on behalf of the people of Barbados, that the success of the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program, sir, would be assured, but we have to continue to stay the course, sir, with respect to seeing the reform efforts through. And it is on that basis, sir, that all of the long-standing work with respect to what has been left languishing is a clear focus, sir, with respect to the provision of leadership, with respect to the Customs Department, and this government is providing that leadership and assurance to the officers that their circumstances, sir, will change simply because there's active attention with respect to the rebuilding of the Customs Department. And this is going to be a journey. There will be a new Customs Act, sir, and we hope that will come in September, which work is being done to complete that. And at that particular time, sir, I hope to be in a position to give the House a much more fulsome report with respect to the reform efforts with respect to the Customs Department. And with those few words, sir, I wish to ask that this bill be read a second time.
Very well. I must say that was a very excellent presentation. Very excellent presentation indeed. But the only thing I didn't hear was the fact of training as you go to a paperless society. But I guess as you wrap up, we will be able to talk about that. The member for the City of Bridgetown.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I rise to give full support to this bill, a bill to amend the Customs Act, which would facilitate the implementation of the Advanced Cargo Information System. And while I recognize the important role that customs play in relation to revenue collection, I want to focus my brief remarks on a fundamental role that custom also plays, which is that of security and border security in this country. And it would be remiss of me if, as one who is grounded in security, if I did not speak to this bill in relation to the overall security regime of this country, because this is part of and parcel of that regime. And I must say that I am really happy that we have reached this point finally, where we are bringing this legislation. And I'm happy because I believe strongly that for too long, the security of our country, and indeed our region, were seen to be the responsibility of other players. And I really welcome the occasion that piece by piece, we are beginning to take hold of the responsibility of our own security, and this is part of that as well. And for that, I think that this is really deserving of being here today, and I give it my fullest support. Our security regime encompasses air, sea, and land, and I would even venture to say, certainly within the last few years, that we ought to be looking at cyber security as well, because that is becoming a serious threat, not only to national security, but it is an international threat. And that is an area that we have to focus on as well. As far as air security is concerned, the APIS and the ACIS will be the cornerstone of that response, and also the fact that immigration and customs or border security officers play a vital role in that regard. But you see, we have again the same two structures, as well as a coastal radar system. We have the Coast Guard and the Marine Police, who also respond. And on land, it is the domain of the Royal Barbados Police Force and the Barbados Defence Force. However, the glue that holds all of this together, or the engine that drives this process, in my view, is really our border security. Vitally important, the ears and eyes at the borders, and now the technology that we'll be able to utilize at the borders for the benefit of this country. So that, having already adopted the Advanced Passenger Information System, and we did that prior to the commencement of the 2007 World Cup, we've now reached just past a decade later to be able to do the same for cargo. And the other aspect of border security, one which is often overlooked, is that of port health. public health. Our public health at our borders is extremely important and must be constituted, or rather must be seen as an element of the whole national security structure. And once we have all of these in place and we take ownership for these systems, I believe that as a country, we will be in a very good position to provide for the safety and security of our citizens and for all persons who reside on this rock. Now, in terms of customs, we started, first of all, with the Asikuda system, as was referred to, the Asikuda software, which is an automated system for customs data. And we are in the process of upgrading that system, because that system is going to be the platform on which the advanced cargo information system will be built. And that is a very, very transformational aspect of our security in many ways, because we know, and it has been discussed at length in the last several months as a result of the high incidence of illegal firearms on the streets of our country. And this government has taken responsibility for that in terms of being able to respond, first of all, by way of the scanners that have been purchased for the use at the port. And now this advanced passenger information system, all of these together with the response by land and sea of the security forces will enhance our security by a long way, to a large extent. And so this makes this very, very important. Now this system, and I'm glad that at the last, I believe it was in February in Haiti at CARICOM Heads of Government meeting, that this was given a new life in terms of not only implementing the system, but legislating both the APIS and the ACIS. And that was within the framework of the heads of governments determining that we must adopt a regional counterterrorism strategy. And that strategy involved these two mechanisms. It's a mechanism and a strategy that was conceptualized by the CARICOM Agency for Crime and Security, which is headquartered in Trinidad and Tobago, with consultations with regional counterparts like the Caribbean Customs Law Enforcement Council, and as well as members of the international community. There are several benefits, Mr. Speaker, that can be derived from having this advanced passenger information system. First of all, this enhances regional integration, because what this does is that it forces us to really come together as a region in terms of sharing information that's vital to the security of our countries individually and collectively to this region. And that is something that seemed very, very difficult to achieve over the last several years. But in the same way that APIS has done, I am absolutely certain that we will achieve the results with the ACIS, because the advanced passenger information system, which has been with us now for over a decade, has been a solid foundation not only for security responses, but preparations and training to deal with international security problems and to also assist our neighbors, both regionally and internationally. And so this is what I anticipate will be the outcome of having legislated and implemented the advanced cargo information system. Another benefit certainly is the harmonization and standardization of approaches, which will then produce a win-win situation for stakeholders, including security and those business entities that utilize the services at our ports of entry to move their cargo. It also gives our customs officers a greater opportunity to be able to categorize cargo, which would make it easier for them to be able then to handle and to deal with the cargo. And this is something that is very, very important, because by being able to do so, we will be able to improve tremendously the way that we do business in Barbados. And if you look at some other countries that have similar systems, you'll recognize that there have been a lot of benefits that have been derived from these systems. In Rwanda, for example, just with a single window system, they recorded the following results, that whereas it was taken back in 2010, 11 days to clear goods from the port, that was reduced to 34 hours in 2014 by having an electronic system. And also the volumes of cargo that were being inspected increased from 14% in 2012 to 42% in 2014. So there's no doubt at all that this is going to really improve the way that we do business in Barbados and will certainly lead to economic development. But legislating the Advanced Passenger Information System on its own is not going to do it. Not even having the implementation of the system. There are certain key things that are essential if we want to succeed in this project. First and foremost, there must be the political will. And that is something that I believe was lacking over the past several years. And this Barbados Labour Party government is now demonstrating that we have the political will to do it, first of all, by legislation, and then secondly, by implementation, by the purchase of the system. So that is important here. I was happy when the Honourable Minister indicated that there will be a communication and coordination plan with stakeholders in the coming weeks, because this is vital. This is not going to work if we do not have those conversations. It's not going to work if we do not coordinate these activities. And we know we've had some difficulties and challenges with other systems that we've tried to implement, and we must learn from any errors made in terms of the implementation of those systems. Additionally, I believe strongly that there should be a reasonable time for the implementation of the system. I'm happy that we are going to go past August. And as important as the system is, and it really is, and beneficial not only to the economy but to the security of the country, we need to be able to do this with some timelines that would facilitate proper implementation. And the other thing that I would like to speak to is the fact that this is not something new. There are other countries that have implemented this system. And it would be in our interests, Mr. Speaker, if we would collaborate and cooperate with those countries to see what issues they had in the beginning when they were implementing the system, what issues they have now, so that when we put our system, when we roll out our system, that we would roll out a system that will not have any serious hiccups and that everything will proceed smoothly. The question of customs and law enforcement is one that we really need to address. And I believe that the time has come more and more where we ought to provide a level of training to our customs and law enforcement officers, including immigration, that the whole posture of customs will shift somewhat to that of law enforcement, because there is no doubt whatsoever that if we are going to provide a safe and secure environment for development to take place in this country, that without all of the financial resources to have large forces and highly sophisticated weaponry and all of the other things that go along with that, it is vitally important that our borders are fully secured and that those who are the eyes and ears, those who provide the surveillance of our borders, that they are trained not only physically, but also that they have the mental toughness to recognize the importance of the work that they do at the borders, and customs certainly is one of those. I remember some years ago, while I served as an officer in the Barbados Defense Force, that customs law enforcement was deemed to be so important by the government of the United Kingdom that there was a shift in the security assistance that was provided by the government of the United Kingdom, where the focus of that initiative was done through the customs officer who was based here from the United Kingdom here at the High Commission, because they saw at the time that customs played the pivotal role in terms of preventing human trafficking, gun smuggling, drugs and other contraband from coming into the region. And that is the emphasis that was given at that time. I remember also interacting with the Caribbean Customs Law Enforcement Council, again, because they played a very, very vital role. But I believe that the time has come as we spend money, and these systems are very expensive. They are. But the truth is they value for money because of the benefits that they bring to the country. And I believe the time has come where we perhaps have to step up a notch at the regional security system level. And that is a level the RSS has been there for us from the early 1980s. And a lot of the security structures that we have in place now at the CARICOM level, I think that they were born out of initiatives coming from the small regional security system of which Barbados is a member state. And I think the next level now has to encompass discussions and also facilitations with customs and immigration within the RSS space, so that we have a coordinated and a collaborative approach to security in a comprehensive and holistic manner. And that is the only way that we as small territories would be able to fight against those issues that individually may be beyond our capacity, but certainly collectively we can do something to mitigate the dangers. And finally, cybersecurity, which will impact on some of these very issues that I was addressing here just now, including our systems. That is a real serious threat, and one that we need to pay some attention to, not only in this country, but regionally. And I know for sure that there have been cyber attacks within our CARICOM space, without going into any details. And we certainly do not have the capacity to deal with something like that on our own. And an integrated approach is absolutely necessary. An approach that would see us, for example, formulating some cyber emergency response teams or CERT teams within the region that would be able to assist any member state that is impacted. And that, like I said, is vital, because the very electronic systems that we are depending on to do a lot of things can be attacked. And so with those few words, Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me say that once again, that I give this amendment my full support. I think it is something that is absolutely necessary. It might have been long in coming, but better late than never. And I am happy to be part of a government that recognizes the need to enhance the security at our borders, and that in spite of whatever difficulties we are going through economically, that we can still find the fiscal space to be able to provide those border agencies with the necessary funding to purchase equipment that I am sure will keep each and every one of us safe and sound. With those few words, I'm obliged.
Great. Member for St. James North.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I take this opportunity to intervene in this debate as Minister with responsibility for immigration. I will not speak for, certainly not for the whole 30 minutes, as you yourself, Mr. Speaker, and I commend the Member of Parliament for Christchurch East Central. East Central, yes. I mean, it's not often that a presiding officer praises a speaker. He has essentially covered all the areas, buttressed by the security expert of Parliament, the member for the city, because this debate has obviously implications both for on the economic side, in terms of fiscal certainty and improving our collection of duties at the port, customs duties, but also it has serious implications in terms of border security. And both of my colleagues here who have so far contributed to this debate, spoken eloquently on each of those matters. But I believe I should also take the opportunity to intervene as Minister with responsibility for immigration. As has been said by the Honourable Member of Parliament, Christchurch East Central, this legislation seeks to bring into line the provisions for submission of advance information as it relates to cargo entering Barbados with what we recently passed through this Parliament in terms of passenger advance information on passengers in January earlier this year. This is key, sir, in an age where security is so fundamental to a country's future and progress at national level, at regional level, and at international level, because the world, sir, is getting smaller and smaller every day. We are part of a regional system, sir, and our vulnerability is shown on a daily basis as small island states, part of a CARICOM member nationhood, sir, all intertwined with each other. Our borders are very susceptible to guns, sir, drugs, and other illegal processes. And in an age of technology, sir, the world becomes smaller and smaller each year in terms of accessibility of those who don't mean as well. So we can't look at issues as Barbados being an island unto itself, sir. We have to be concerned as a region in terms of security. And as both speakers have said and have emphasized, our regional security is paramount, and this has certainly been one of the focuses of the heads of government at recent conferences, especially with the accession as a head of government of the Honourable Prime Minister of Barbados 13 months ago, sir, as leader now of the CSME implementation. So, we are addressing this fundamentally, and I'm proud to be part of a government that understands that this is a fundamental aspect of our development, that we don't only look at the economic side, sir, that we don't only look at the social advancement of our people, sir, but we also have to look at border security, national security, and protection of our people. So we all know that, look, we have a crime surge, sir, that none of us wish, and that all of us, both inside this Parliament, sir, and out of this Parliament, have to be concerned about, sir. Because all your socio-economic gains can be removed in a short time by criminal insecurity, sir. We've spoken about this many times in this Parliament since coming into office, sir. And we are fighting against a situation where, for the period between 2008 and May 2018, sir, what has been correctly termed the last decade, that the then government essentially surrendered itself to influx of illegal goods, cargo, whether it's guns, drugs coming in through not only our main ports of entry, sir, but otherwise. Let's deal with the main ports of entry, sir, where you have a situation, as has been said both inside and outside this Parliament by honourable ministers, that you're only screening 6% of the cargo coming into Barbados through the main ports, sir. I mean, you look at the odds, sir. I mean, this is not a case of thinking that 20% is greater than 80%, sir. This is not even that case. This is 6% now we're dealing with of the goods being screened, sir. And absolutely unacceptable. You would have heard, sir, the public, we would have told the public that new scanner for the port costing millions of dollars, I think about $40 million, sir, has arrived, sir, and this, of course, will improve the systems of security, sir, because people still need the technology, the equipment to be able to do their job. And we as a cabinet, of course, with the responsibility, as I said, for the national security of the country, move to plug these holes, these obvious holes, these holes that should have been obvious to any executive, to any cabinet, led by responsible people, so elected by the people of the country, to have filled, but yet remained unfulfilled for, what, I think about 5 years, one scanner working at the port. Now we have the second, another one being repaired, sir. So these are fundamental issues, and this debate, sir, this amendment to the Customs Act, in addition to buttressing the economic grounding and regime of our country, as we have to do as a government, also seeks to enforce and strengthen the national security of Barbados, sir. The definition of advanced cargo information, of course, is stated in the amendment in Section 2, and it's wide. It means a manifest, an airway bill, a bill of lading, information, data, set out in the first schedule to the AXA, and the schedules, of course, set out all the data that is required. It intentionally follows, as I said, the advanced passenger information amendments to the Immigration Act, which we would have brought before this Parliament a few months ago, sir. Similar information is required on the issue. The data comprising the advanced passenger information is outlined in paragraph 3, sir, of the amendment. All the data that is required to comprise this information, sir, and all of this is fundamental to our advancement. A list of the passengers and crew on the aircraft or the ship which accompanies the cargo has to be given, and of course this information is submitted to the Joint Regional Communications Centre, sir, of which Barbados is a part, which in fact is based in Barbados, a regional organisation, and they have the mandate, the expertise to process this information and to keep this information for a 7-year period, sir. 7 years is normally the period internationally whereby security information and other information of this type is kept by the relevant authorities. And of course, the Joint Regional Communication Centre would have the responsibility of informing our intelligence agencies of any persons on any regional or international watch list of persons who are suspected or who have been involved in criminal activity on a previous occasion. This information will be conveyed to our intelligence agencies. And of course, there are time frames before which this information has to be given before the ship or aircraft reaches Barbados or is expected to arrive in Barbados. And again, these time frames, sir, mimic to a very large extent the time frames which are provided for in the amendment to the Immigration Act on the APIS. 40 minutes information, data provided shall be provided in the case of a commercial aircraft no later than 40 minutes prior to the departure from the last port of call. In respect of a private aircraft, no later than 40 minutes prior to the departure from the last port of call. And in the case of a ship or aircraft arriving outside our domestic space, and our domestic space essentially is the CARICOM region, no later than 24 hours prior to the arrival. In the case of a ship or aircraft arriving from a destination within our domestic space, the CARICOM region, no later than 1 hour prior to the arrival. This is sufficient time, sir, for the JRCC to process the information and to inform our border security and national security authorities of a possible threat in terms of person traveling with the cargo. Sir, the honourable member for Christchurch, Central would have spoken to his personal involvement in looking at the customs department and touring there, sir. I mean, all of us have been given strong urgings by our leader, the Honourable Prime Minister, to roll up our sleeves and get involved. Don't leave these things to happen, chance. Up to yesterday, I would have, as part of my final tour of all the post offices in Barbados, visited the airport cargo area, sir, and would have spent some time there critically examining the processes involved in cargo coming into Barbados through the airport, the security that is dealt with, the security issues that are dealt with in terms of examining that cargo, sir, seeking to assure myself that there were no possible breaches in that, making recommendations for possible improvements, sir, because we all have to be sure. I mean, to err is human, sir, but we have to be as sure as possible within our means that we do not allow more guns, more drugs to come into this country than are in already, sir. Because this humbugging everybody, and this is not the way that we want Barbados to progress, indeed the way that Barbados can progress and move towards its rightful place in history and in terms of world leadership, especially in terms of small island developing states. So I'm satisfied that all of us are on board on this issue, sir, of national security. The goods that are in transit or to be transferred to another ship or aircraft for re-exportation shall be shown separately, sir, and distinct from those goods that will remain in Barbados having come in. The Act speaks, the amendments speak towards a fine, sir, $50,000 for breaches of this data information supply, sir. There's also provision for the authorities to be able to detain, the ship or aircraft if the data or information is incomplete or is not forthcoming, sir. And this is obviously in line with good governance, sir. But on the issue, obviously, of clearly of fiscal advancement and fiscal and governance and economic development, sir, the Honourable presenter today has spoken in terms of the importance of this and the place of what we're doing today in terms of our trade network as part of a global enterprise, and the need for us to develop as an economy, as a country, to improve our productive sectors and to totally facilitate Barbados as a trading station within both our region and the world. And this is important, sir. We've lost ground, as I said, sir, in the last decade, declining from number 72 in terms of ease of doing business to 133 out of 160 countries on May the 24th last year, the date of the election, sir. We've improved slightly, sir. I believe we went up to 129 by the end of last year. Sir, I'm sure that by the end of this year, with the procedures, processes, the initiatives that we're taking, sir, in customs, in immigration, in licensing authority, corporate registry, all of the departments, sir, that quite frankly, sir, it was embarrassing to go there and seek to do business. You have to take a whole day off of work up to last year, and even continuing, sir, to do business with these departments, sir. But we are working on these. We ask the country to be patient with us. I know our immigration, sir, as we speak, the Honourable Minister in the other place for Innovation, Science and Technology, again taking a hands-on approach. She's been at immigration quite a bit, sir, with her team and of both locals and international experts, looking to improve the systems at immigration, sir, in terms of the digitalization of the process and all of that. So customs has to be and will be part of this as well, because we all know the difficulty that it was, sir, to deal with customs, to get goods out of the ports, especially at Christmas, when, you know, relatives from overseas send down stuff to us at Christmas, of course, and it has to be done, sir. Customs will improve, sir. The honourable member presented this debate, spoke about the initiatives that are being done under his mandate to improve the customs sector, sir. Training is a key aspect, sir. And Your Honour, you and your wisdom, of course, pointed that out to the Honourable Minister. Training is a key aspect, and clearly not much training was done in customs and to their officers over that last decade period. And therefore we have to make up ground now, sir. Clearly, those on the front burner have to have knowledge of information technology, accounts, statistics, these kind of skills, and not only have, you know, ordinary clerical skills. This is important. They have to be given the information, sir, allowed to grow and be given the opportunities. It is not always, sir, and I think sometimes government with a big G, sir, has failed our people in this regard, that the public servants, the public officers have not been trained in the processes surrounding their work as could have been done, sir. And, you know, I suppose previous governments or governments might have said at various times that the finance not there, sir, but the cost of not training officers is greater than training them, sir. That is the truth. So this government, I'm happy to say, sir, recognizes that with all that we're doing, sir, and having found a bankrupt economy, virtually a bankrupt economy, coming into office May last year, sir, we still realize the importance and the significance of finding funds to train those who are in the public service, especially in key areas, sir, such as customs. And this is being done, sir. This will be done. Of course, sir, we look forward, as the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central said, is being done, to reform of the Customs Department and to institutional strengthening of that department, sir. Key aspects, sir. The department is too important for this not to be done in terms of institutional strengthening at the human resource level and the technology level, sir. And of course, the Honourable Prime Minister, who ultimately has the overall ministerial mandate for the department, sir, would have 2 or 3 months ago created a new position referred to earlier in this debate of Customs Officer 4, sir, and which I'm sure, which in fact was an initiative that the trade union representatives of the customs officers would have been asking for a while before. The issue clearly of acting appointments, sir, in the Customs Department has to be addressed, not only in the Customs Department, sir, but throughout government, sir, and we recognise this. I mean, the Honourable Member spoke about the head of the department being someone in an acting position for well over a decade, sir. I mean, we can't continue along this line in terms of government, sir. And in my ministry, which of course comprises a lot of internal affairs department, post, fire, immigration, especially, sir, on a daily basis, I am asked when this particular issue is going to be sorted out. Of course, the issue of the qualification order which the previous government brought in 2015 or 2016 has even complicated this matter even more, sir, that's the truth. And it lies to us to again sort out this problem that has emerged, that, you know, the last government, sir, on that point, I'm not going to say that they did it with malice, sir. I think they didn't understand the implications of what those qualification orders would mean for a public service of, what, 27,000 people at that time, sir. And it has complicated issues throughout many of the departments, sir. And happy to hear that the issue of the acting appointments in customs at certain levels is being seriously looked at, sir, but clearly not only in customs does this have to be done, but throughout the length and breadth of the civil service, and in particular, sir, in the Ministry of Home Affairs. So, sir, I said I will not take up the full 30 minutes, sir. I'm a man who likes to keep my word, sir, and certainly I am in full support, sir, and happy to be part of this debate, sir, on this important point, both in terms of buttressing our fiscal and economic governance and tax collection mechanisms, sir, but also our border and national security regimes. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Member for...
Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that the sit-in be suspended until 1:45 p.m.
The question is that this will be suspended until 1:45 p.m. this afternoon. All members in favour say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. This House is now suspended until 1:45 p.m. But before we go to lunch, I would just like to acknowledge my buddy and friend, boyhood friend, Bull Holman Adamson. Thank you. House is now suspended until 1:45.